The dust cloud appeared on the horizon like a storm made of earth and fury, and Elena Vasquez knew her carefully constructed world was about to shatter. She pressed her palm against the rough wooden fence post, watching the lone rider approach her small homestead outside Copper Ridge, Arizona territory. The marriage contract in her other hand crinkled as her fingers trembled. Tomorrow, she was supposed to marry Samuel Hartwell, a kind but passionless banker who'd answered her advertisement for a practical arrangement, a man who offered security but stirred nothing in her blood. The rider drew closer, and Elena's breath caught. Even from a distance, she could see the fluid way he moved with his horse, as if they were one creature. Dark hair caught the wind beneath a worn black hat, and something dangerous emanated from his silhouette against the burning sunset. Before we continue with Elena's incredible journey, if you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to help me reach my first 50 subscribers. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more epic Western romance tales. Now, let's get back to the story. The horse's hooves thundered closer, and Elena found herself walking toward the approaching stranger despite every rational thought screaming at her to run inside and bolt the door. When he was 20 yards away, he slowed his magnificent black stallion to a walk, and Elena felt her world tilt on its axis. He was breathtaking in a way that made her forget how to breathe properly. Native American features carved by wind and sun, with eyes the color of storm clouds that seemed to see straight through her carefully maintained composure. A scar ran from his left temple to his jaw, only adding to the dangerous beauty of his face. He wore buckskin and denim, a gun belt riding low on his hips, and carried himself with the confidence of a man who'd never backed down from anything in his life. "You, Elena Vasquez?" His voice was low, rough as whiskey, with an accent that spoke of mountains and hidden valleys. "I am." Her own voice came out breathier than she intended. "Who's asking?" He swung down from his horse with easy grace, and she noticed how tall he was, how broad his shoulders looked beneath the worn leather vest. "Name's Jake Crowfeather. I have business with you." Something about the way he said it made her pulse quicken. "What kind of business?" Instead of answering immediately, he reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a letter. Her letter. The one she'd written to Samuel Hartwell 3 months ago, accepting his proposal of marriage. "Found this on a dead man 2 days ago," Jake said, his storm-gray eyes never leaving her face, along with a wedding ring and $500 in his pocket. The world seemed to stop spinning. Elena felt the blood drain from her face as the implications hit her. Samuel Hartwell is dead, bushwhacked by bandits outside Tucson. I tracked them, got your letter back, and some other things. He paused, studying her reaction. "Figured you deserved to know before you showed up at a church tomorrow to marry a ghost." Elena sank onto her porch steps, the marriage contract falling from nerveless fingers. Samuel was dead. Her carefully planned future, her escape from the poverty and uncertainty that had plagued her since her father's death, had just evaporated like morning mist. "I'm sorry for your loss," Jake said, and she looked up to find genuine sympathy in his eyes. "Were you close to him?" The question made her laugh, though it came out more like a sob. "I never met him. It was a business arrangement." Something shifted in Jake's expression, a flash of something she couldn't identify. A business arrangement. Heat flooded her cheeks, but she lifted her chin defiantly. "I needed security. He needed a wife. It was practical." Practical. He repeated the word like it tasted bitter. "And what about love? Love is a luxury I can't afford." The words came out sharper than she intended, born of too many nights wondering if she was making a terrible mistake. "I have debts to pay, a homestead to keep. Winter's coming." Samuel offered stability. Jake was quiet for a long moment, studying her with those penetrating eyes. Then he did something unexpected. He sat down beside her on the steps, close enough that she could smell leather and sage and something uniquely masculine that made her head spin. "What will you do now?" he asked. The simple question broke something loose inside her chest. "I don't know," she whispered. "I sent him half the money for my travel expenses already. I was supposed to take the stage to Phoenix tomorrow, marry him, and start a new life. Now you're back where you started. She nodded, not trusting her voice. They sat in silence as the sun finished setting, painting the sky in shades of copper and gold. Despite the devastation of her situation, Elena found herself acutely aware of the man beside her. Heat radiated from his body, and she caught herself breathing deeper, trying to catch more of his scent. There might be another option, Jake said suddenly. She turned to look at him and nearly gasped at how close he was. His eyes had darkened and she could see herself reflected in them. What do you mean? I've been looking for a place to settle down. Been riding alone too long. His voice had dropped to a rough whisper that made something deep in her belly tighten. Your place here? It's good land, good water. Could use a man's hand to make it prosper. Elena's heart started beating so hard she was sure he could hear it. Are you proposing? I'm proposing a partnership, he said carefully. You need security. I need a home. We could make it work. But we don't know each other, she protested, even as every cell in her body screamed that she wanted to know him, wanted to discover every secret hidden in those storm-gray eyes. We could learn. His hand covered hers on the step between them, and she felt electricity shoot up her arm. His skin was warm, calloused from years of hard living and completely engulfing. Question is, would you want to? Loving the tension between these characters? Hit that like button and subscribe. I'm on a mission to reach 50 subscribers, and you can help me get there. Every subscription counts. Now let's see what happens next. Elena stared down at their joined hands, her mind reeling. This was insane. She knew nothing about this man except that he was devastatingly attractive and had been kind enough to bring her word of Samuel's death. He could be anyone, could be dangerous, could be... Why would you want to tie yourself to a stranger? She asked. Jake was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight of old pain. Been alone for 5 years now, since my wife died. The simple admission hit her like a physical blow. She looked up to find his eyes distant, focused on something she couldn't see. I'm sorry, she said softly. She was white, he continued, as if she hadn't spoken. Her family never accepted me, my people. Some of them never forgave her for choosing me. We lived caught between two worlds, never fully belonging to either. He squeezed her hand gently. When the fever took her, I realized I was completely alone. Been drifting ever since. Something in his voice, a loneliness that echoed her own, made her chest ache. What was her name? Sarah. A small smile crossed his face. She had hair like sunshine and a laugh that could make flowers bloom. The smile faded. She'd want me to find happiness again, to find someone to share a life with. And you think that someone could be me? Elena's voice came out barely above a whisper. Jake turned to face her fully, his free hand coming up to cup her cheek. The touch was gentle, reverent, and sent fire racing through her veins. I think you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, and I've been sitting here for an hour wanting to kiss you so bad it's killing me. The raw honesty in his voice stole her breath. She leaned into his touch without conscious thought, her eyes fluttering closed as his thumb traced her cheekbone. This is crazy, she whispered. Completely. He agreed, his voice rough. But crazy doesn't always mean wrong. When she opened her eyes, he was watching her with an intensity that made her feel like she might catch fire. Jake, say yes, he murmured, leaning closer. Say yes to the partnership. Say yes to taking a chance. Say yes to letting me kiss you right here, right now. Every rational thought in her head told her to pull away, to thank him politely for his offer, and send him on his way. She had sworn after watching her parents' tumultuous relationship that she would never make decisions based on passion. She had promised herself that her next marriage would be logical, practical, safe. But as Jake's thumb continued its gentle caress across her cheek, as his eyes darkened with desire, as her own body betrayed her with its urgent response to his nearness, Elena felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. Yes, she breathed. The word had barely left her lips before his mouth was on hers, warm and firm and absolutely perfect. The kiss started gentle, questioning, but when she melted against him with a soft moan, it deepened into something that made her toes curl in her boots. Jake tasted like coffee and danger, and promises she was afraid to believe in. His hand tangled in her long dark hair, holding her close as his lips moved against hers with growing urgency. Elena had been kissed before, but never like this, never with such consuming fire that made her forget her own name. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jake rested his forehead against hers. Was that a yes to the kiss, or a yes to everything? Elena laughed shakily, surprised by the sound. I don't know. I think you broke my brain. Good, he murmured, pressing a soft kiss to her temple. Because I plan to do it again, often. The promise in his voice made her shiver with anticipation. Jake, I should tell you, I'm not experienced with. She trailed off, heat flooding her cheeks. Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed by something that looked like tenderness. Elena, are you telling me you're innocent? She nodded, unable to meet his gaze. Samuel knew it was part of our arrangement. He wanted a pure wife, and I needed the security marriage offered. I've never been with a man. Jake's hand tilted her chin up, forcing her to look at him. That doesn't change anything except that I'll have to be extra careful with you. Extra gentle. His thumb traced her lower lip, making her breath catch. When you're ready, if you're ready. This partnership works however you want it to work. The consideration in his voice, the respect, made something warm bloom in her chest. And if I'm never ready? Then we'll be partners and friends, and I'll be the luckiest man alive to have you in my life in any capacity. He smiled, and it transformed his entire face, making him look younger, less dangerous. But I hope eventually you'll want more. Elena studied his face, searching for any sign of deception or ulterior motive. All she saw was sincerity, and a desire so intense it made her feel powerful and afraid in equal measure. There's something else you should know, she said. I'm Mexican. My father was Spanish. My mother Apache. Some people know they don't accept mixing. Jake's expression darkened. Let them try to say something. I've dealt with narrow-minded fools before. It could make things difficult. Elena. He caught her hands in both of his. I've lived caught between worlds my whole life. My mother was Crow. My father was a fur trapper from Montana. I know what it's like to belong nowhere and everywhere at once. He brought her hands to his lips, pressing soft kisses to her knuckles. Maybe that's why this feels right. Maybe we're meant to build our own world, one where it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. The words were so exactly what she'd always dreamed of hearing that she felt tears prick her eyes. You make it sound simple. The simple things usually are the hardest, he said, but that doesn't mean they're not worth doing. Elena looked around her small homestead, seeing it suddenly through new eyes. With Jake's help, it could become something beautiful, prosperous. More than that, it could become a real home instead of just a place to survive. If we do this, she said slowly, how would we? I mean, would you expect me to? Take your time, Jake said firmly. We'll get to know each other first. Court properly, even though we're already talking marriage. A wicked grin crossed his face, though I reserve the right to try to convince you with kisses. Heat pooled low in her belly at the promise in his voice. That seems fair. So, is that a yes to the partnership? Elena took a deep breath, feeling as though she was standing at the edge of a cliff, about to jump into unknown waters. Everything logical told her this was madness, but her heart, her treacherous heart, was singing with possibilities. Yes, she said. Yes to the partnership. Jake's smile was brilliant. He stood, pulling her up with him, and spun her around until she laughed with dizzy delight. When he set her down, his hands remained on her waist, holding her close. We should probably talk about practical things, Elena said, even as she made no move to step away from his embrace. Such as? Well, where would you sleep? The house only has one bedroom. If you're loving this tale so far, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. I'm working hard to reach 50 subscribers, and every single one of you makes a difference. Help me grow this channel. Now, back to Elena. Jake's eyes darkened with heat, but his voice remained gentle. I can sleep in the barn until you're comfortable with other arrangements, or we could add another room to the house. That would be expensive. I have some money saved, and there are other ways to pay for materials. He paused, seeming to weigh his words. Elena, there's something I should tell you about myself, about what I do. Unease prickled at the back of her neck. What do you mean? I track people for a living, mostly bounty hunting, sometimes working for the law. That's how I found the men who killed your intended. I brought them in for justice. He watched her face carefully. It's not always a respectable profession in some people's eyes. Elena considered this. Do you hunt innocent people? Never, only those who've committed crimes. Then I don't see the problem. She surprised herself with how firmly she said it. You're bringing justice to people who deserve it. That's honorable work. Relief flickered across his features. Not everyone sees it that way. I'm not everyone. The words came out with more confidence than she felt, but as she said them, she realized they were true. She was tired of caring what other people thought, tired of making choices based on fear and propriety. No, Jake agreed, his hands tightening on her waist. You're definitely not everyone. The way he looked at her like she was something precious and rare made her feel beautiful for the first time in her life. Not just pretty, but genuinely beautiful, worthy of desire and passion and love. We should go inside, she said breathlessly. It's getting cold. Is that an invitation? The question hung in the air between them, loaded with possibility. Elena knew that if she invited him into her house, into her private space, things would change irrevocably between them. She also knew with startling clarity that she wanted them to change. Yes, she whispered. Jake's eyes flared with heat, but he made no move to rush her. Instead, he linked their fingers together and let her lead him up the steps to her front door. The interior of Elena's house was small but cozy, furnished with simple wooden pieces and brightened by colorful woven rugs and curtains. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace, casting dancing shadows on the walls. It's beautiful, Jake said, and she could tell he meant it. Feels like a real home. Thank you. Elena suddenly felt shy, hyper-aware of his presence in her personal space. Would you like some coffee or something to eat? Coffee sounds good. She busied herself with the familiar task, grateful for something to do with her hands. But when she turned from the stove, she found Jake standing much closer than she'd expected, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Elena, he said softly, are you having second thoughts? About which part? She asked with a shaky laugh. Any of it, all of it. His hand came up to cup her cheek again, and she leaned into the touch automatically. If this is too fast, we can slow down. If you've changed your mind about the partnership, I'll understand. The gentleness in his voice, the genuine concern, made her heart ache with something that felt dangerously like love. I'm terrified, she admitted. This morning I thought I knew exactly what my future looked like. Now everything's changed and I don't know what's going to happen. Scared can be good, Jake murmured, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. Means it matters. Does it matter to you? The question slipped out before she could stop it, vulnerable and raw. Elena. Her name was a prayer on his lips. I came here to deliver bad news to a stranger. I never expected you. What about me? Everything about you. Your strength, your beauty, the way you kissed me like you were drowning and I was air. His other hand came up to frame her face, holding her like she was something infinitely precious. I've been half alive for 5 years, just going through the motions. And then I saw you, and suddenly I remembered what it felt like to want something more than just surviving. The raw honesty in his voice broke down the last of her defenses. Jake, let me court you properly, he said urgently. Let me show you that this could be real. that we could build something beautiful together. Give me a chance to earn your trust, your affection, your love." The last word hung between them like a promise, fragile and powerful. Elena felt herself falling, not just into attraction but into something much deeper and more dangerous. "How long?" she whispered. "How long what? How long do you want for this courtship?" A slow smile spread across his face. "How long do you need?" Elena thought about it seriously, trying to balance caution with the fire burning in her veins every time he touched her. "A month," she said finally. "Give me a month to get to know you, to trust you, to decide if this is real." "A month," Jake agreed. "And at the end of that month?" Heat flooded her cheeks, but she held his gaze. "At the end of that month, if we both still want this, we make it official. A real marriage. In every way." The promise in those words made Jake's eyes darken to slate gray. "Elena, are you sure? Because a month of wanting you and not being able to touch you properly is going to be torture." "Who says you can't touch me?" The bold words surprised her, but she didn't take them back. "I said we'd wait for everything, but I didn't say we couldn't kiss. Couldn't learn what we like." Jake's breathing became audibly rougher. "You're going to kill me, woman." "I certainly hope not," Elena said with a smile that felt more confident than she'd ever managed before. "I'm rather looking forward to learning what I can do to you." The comment earned her a low groan, and a look so heated it should have set the house on fire. "You have no idea what you're saying. Then teach me." The words hung in the air between them, an invitation and a challenge. Jake stared at her for a long moment, his hand still framing her face, his expression shifting between desire and restraint. "Elena," he said finally, his voice rough with want, if we start learning each other this way, there's no going back. Are you sure you're ready for that?" Elena thought about the man she'd planned to marry, about the passionless arrangement that would have defined her life. Then she looked at Jake, at the storm in his eyes and the way he held her like she was everything he'd ever wanted, and she knew with startling clarity that she was done playing it safe. "Teach me," she repeated, and this time her voice didn't shake. "We're getting to the most intense part of the story. If you're hooked, show your support by hitting like and subscribe. Help me reach 50 subscribers so I can keep bringing you these passionate Western romances. Let's continue." Jake's control snapped with an almost audible sound. His mouth crashed down on hers, and this kiss was nothing like the gentle exploration they'd shared on the porch. This was fire and demand and barely leashed hunger. Elena met him with equal fervor, her hands fisting in the leather of his vest as she pressed closer. Jake's hands slid down to her waist, pulling her flush against him, and Elena gasped at the contact. She could feel the strength in his arms, the heat of his body, the rapid beat of his heart against her chest. It was intoxicating, overwhelming, and she wanted more. "Elena," Jake groaned against her mouth, "you taste like honey and temptation." His words sent liquid fire through her veins. She had never felt so alive, so desired, so powerful in her ability to affect another person. When Jake's lips trailed down her throat, finding the sensitive spot where her pulse fluttered wildly, she let out a sound she didn't recognize as her own voice. "Jake," she whispered, her hands tangling in his dark hair. "I don't know what I'm doing." "Neither do I," he admitted against her skin. "I've never felt like this before, like I'm burning alive and the only thing that can save me is your touch." The confession made her bold. She pulled his head up so she could look into his eyes, seeing her own desire reflected back at her. "Then we'll learn together." Jake's smile was tender and wicked all at once. I liked the sound of that. For the next hour they explored the boundaries of their attraction with the curiosity of scholars and the hunger of lovers too long denied. Jake taught her that her neck was sensitive, that the spot just below her ear could make her gasp with pleasure. Elena discovered that Jake's control wavered when she nipped gently at his lower lip, that running her fingers along the scar on his jaw made him groan deep in his throat. They stayed carefully within the bounds Elena had set, but those bounds stretched and expanded as her comfort grew. By the time they finally separated, both breathing hard, Elena felt like a different woman entirely. Gone was the timid girl who'd been willing to settle for a loveless arrangement. In her place was someone who knew her own power, her own desires. "I should go," Jake said reluctantly, though he made no move to leave her embrace, "before I forget myself entirely." "Where will you sleep?" Elena asked, suddenly not wanting him to go. "I have a bedroll. I'll be fine in the barn." The thought of him sleeping alone in the cold barn when she had a warm house made her chest ache. "Jake, would you consider sleeping on the couch? It's not much, but it's warmer than the barn." Hope and desire warred in his expression. "Elena, if I stay in this house with you, I can't guarantee I'll be able to keep my hands to myself." The honesty made her smile. "I trust you, and besides," she added with newly discovered boldness, "I didn't say you had to keep your hands to yourself. I said we'd wait for everything. There's a lot of room between everything and nothing." Jake's eyes darkened. "You're going to be the death of me, aren't you?" "I certainly hope not. I have plans for you, Jake Crowfeather." The promise in her voice made him groan. "What kind of plans?" Elena stood on her toes to whisper in his ear, her lips brushing against his skin. "The kind that require you to be very much alive." Jake's arms tightened around her. "A month," he said, and it sounded like a vow. "I can wait a month." "We'll see," Elena said with a smile that was pure feminine mystery. Over the following days, Jake proved true to his word in every way that mattered. He slept on her couch, woke early to tend to the animals and mend fences, and treated her with a combination of respect and barely restrained desire that made her feel cherished and wanted in equal measure. He also proved to be an excellent partner in the practical sense. Under his skilled hands, her struggling homestead began to transform. He repaired the roof, reinforced the barn, and started construction on an additional room that would serve as their bedroom once they were truly married. "You don't have to do all this," Elena protested one afternoon, watching him work on the foundation with muscles that flexed beautifully under his sweat-dampened shirt. "Yes, I do," Jake replied, pausing to wipe his brow. "This is going to be our home. I want it to be perfect for you." The casual way he said, "our home," made her heart skip. In just a week, she'd grown so accustomed to his presence that the thought of him leaving made her panic. "Jake," she said suddenly, "what if this doesn't work? What if at the end of the month we realize we've made a mistake?" He set down his hammer and came to her, his hands settling on her shoulders. "Do you feel like we're making a mistake?" Elena searched her feelings honestly. A week ago, she would have said yes without hesitation. But now, after days of waking to the sound of his voice, of sharing meals and conversation and slow, heated kisses that left her breathless, now the only mistake she could imagine would be letting him go. "No," she whispered. "It terrifies me how right this feels." "Good," Jake murmured, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. "Because I'm completely lost over you, Elena Vasquez. You've got me thinking about forever in ways I never thought I would again." The admission made her brave enough to voice her own growing feelings. "I love watching you work. I love the way you sing under your breath when you think I can't hear. I love that you ask my opinion about everything, even though you probably know more about homesteading than I do. I love that you're not afraid to tell me when I'm doing something wrong," Jake replied. "I love the way you hum while you cook, and the way your eyes light up when you laugh. I love that you taste like cinnamon and dreams." They were dancing around the word they both felt but neither quite dared to say yet. Love was too big, too overwhelming, too dangerous for hearts that had already been broken by loss. But as the days passed, it became harder and harder to deny what was growing between them. Jake was patient with her inexperience but relentless in his gentle seduction. He taught her that desire could be as much about anticipation as fulfillment, that the brush of fingers could be as devastating as a kiss. Elena bloomed under his attention, discovering a sensual side of herself she'd never known existed. She learned to tease him with small touches, to drive him wild with a look across the dinner table. She reveled in her power over this strong, dangerous man who trembled when she ran her fingers through his hair. 2 weeks into their courtship, everything changed. Elena was hanging laundry when she saw the riders approaching. 3 men on horseback, moving with purpose toward her homestead. Ice filled her veins as she recognized the type, rough, armed, and looking for trouble. "Jake!" she called, dropping the wet sheet she'd been hanging. He emerged from the barn, taking in the approaching riders with the swift assessment of a man who'd lived by his wits. "Get in the house," he said quietly. "Lock the doors and don't come out no matter what you hear. I'm not leaving you to face 3 men alone. Elena." His voice brooked no argument. "Go. Now." She wanted to argue, wanted to stand by his side, but she could see the deadly focus settling over him like a mantle. This was Jake, the bounty hunter, the man who tracked dangerous criminals and brought them to justice. He didn't need her interference. Reluctantly, she backed toward the house, but she didn't go inside. Instead, she crouched by the window, watching as the 3 men rode into her yard. The leader was a big man with a scarred face and mean eyes. "Jake Crow Feather," he called out. "Fancy meeting you here." "Briggs," Jake replied evenly. "You're a long way from your usual territory." "Been following you for weeks, Breed," Briggs said, the slur carrying ugly intent. "Ever since you brought in my brother." Elena's blood chilled. This was about Jake's work, about the justice he brought to men who deserved it. And now they'd brought their fight to her home. "Your brother was a murderer and a rapist," Jake said calmly. "He got what he deserved. He got hanged because of you." Briggs's hand moved to his gun. "Now it's your turn." "This is between you and me," Jake said. "Leave the woman out of it." Briggs laughed, an ugly sound. "What woman? That little Mexican whore you're shacked up with? Maybe when we're done with you, we'll have some fun with her." Elena saw Jake's entire body go rigid with rage, and she knew things were about to turn deadly. Without thinking, she grabbed her father's old rifle from above the fireplace and slipped out the back door of the house. The standoff was still ongoing when she crept around to the side of the barn, positioning herself where she had a clear shot at the 3 men if things went bad. She wasn't a great shot, but she was decent enough to help if Jake needed it. "You made a mistake coming here," Jake said, and Elena heard the deadly promise in his voice. "Did I?" Briggs grinned. "Looks like you're outnumbered, Breed. Numbers don't mean much if you don't know how to use them." It happened fast. Briggs went for his gun, and Jake moved like lightning, his own weapon clearing leather with practiced ease. The sound of gunshots echoed across the valley like thunder. When the smoke cleared, 2 of the men were down. Briggs was wounded, clutching his shoulder and cursing. Jake stood over them, his gun still drawn, looking like an avenging angel carved from shadow and steel. "You're going to jail, Briggs," Jake said calmly. "All 3 of you, for attempted murder." "This ain't over," Briggs snarled. "Yes," Jake said quietly, "it is." Elena emerged from her hiding place, rifle in hand, and Jake's eyes went wide with shock and something that looked like terror. "Elena, what the hell are you doing? I told you to stay in the house." "I wasn't going to let you face them alone," she said firmly, though her hands were shaking from reaction. "You could have been killed." Jake's voice cracked with emotion. "If one of them had seen you, if they'd gotten off a lucky shot. But they didn't." Elena set down the rifle and went to him, her hands settling on his chest. "Jake, you're shaking." "I'm fine." But he wasn't fine. She could see the fear in his eyes, the way his hands trembled slightly as he holstered his gun. "Elena, when I heard what he said about you, when I thought about what they might do, I've never been so terrified in my life." The raw honesty in his voice broke something open in her chest. "Jake, I can't lose you," he said urgently, his hands framing her face. "I can't. I know it's only been 2 weeks. I know it's too soon, but Elena, I love you. I love you so much it scares me." The words she'd been afraid to hear, afraid to hope for, hung in the air between them like a benediction. Elena felt tears spring to her eyes, not from fear or sadness, but from pure, overwhelming joy. "I love you too," she whispered. "I think I've loved you since that first night, when you sat on my steps and made me believe in possibilities I'd never dared dream of." Jake's kiss was desperate, grateful, full of all the fear and love and hope that had been building between them. Elena kissed him back with equal fervor, pouring all her newfound certainty into the connection of their lips. "Elena," Jake breathed against her mouth. "I know we said a month, but the month is over," she said firmly. "I don't need more time to know that you're the man I want to spend my life with. I don't need more time to know that I want to be your wife in every way." Jake pulled back to stare at her, his eyes searching her face. "Are you sure? Are you absolutely certain?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," Elena smiled, feeling radiant with happiness and love and the certainty of choice made freely. "Marry me, Jake Crowfeather. Tonight, if possible." "Tonight," Jake agreed, his smile brilliant. "Though I should warn you, Mrs. Crowfeather, I plan to spend our wedding night showing you exactly how much I love you." "I'm counting on it," Elena replied, and kissed him again as the sun set on her old life and rose on the beautiful, uncertain, passionate future she'd chosen for herself. That evening, they were married by the circuit judge in Copper Ridge, with the sheriff and his wife as witnesses. Elena wore her mother's white dress, altered hastily to fit, and carried a bouquet of wild flowers Jake had picked for her. They spoke their vows by candlelight, promising to love and cherish each other through whatever storms might come. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Jake's kiss was gentle, reverent, full of promises yet to be kept. But Elena could see the fire banked in his eyes, the carefully controlled desire that would soon be unleashed. They rode back to their homestead under a blanket of stars, Elena seated side saddle in front of Jake on his horse, surrounded by the warmth of his arms and the steady beat of his heart. She felt nervous and excited, and more alive than she'd ever felt in her life. Having second thoughts, Jake murmured against her ear as they approached the house. "Only about how long I made us wait," Elena replied honestly. Jake's low laugh sent shivers down her spine. "We'll make up for lost time, I promise." Inside the house, Jake lit candles while Elena stood uncertainly in the middle of the main room, suddenly shy again. This was her wedding night, the night she would finally become a true wife in every sense of the word. The thought was thrilling and terrifying in equal measure. "Elena." Jake's voice was gentle as he approached her. "We can take this as slowly as you need. There's no rush." "I know," she whispered. "I trust you completely. I don't know what to do." "You don't have to do anything," Jake said, his hands settling lightly on her shoulders. Just be here with me." He leaned down to press a soft kiss to her forehead. "I love you." "Mrs. Crowfeather." The sound of her new name on his lips made her smile. "I love you too, Mr. Crowfeather." "Good," Jake murmured, and then his mouth was on hers, soft and patient and infinitely loving. "Thank you so much for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, please smash that like button and subscribe to help me reach my goal of 50 subscribers. Your support helps me create more amazing Western romance stories for you. What did you think of this story? Let me know in the comments below. As Jake carried her to their new bedroom, Elena knew that her heart had indeed betrayed everything she'd sworn to believe about love and marriage. But as his hands worshipped her body, and his voice whispered words of love and devotion, she realized that sometimes betrayal was just another word for salvation. She had found her home, her heart, her forever in the arms of a man who'd appeared like an answer to prayers she'd never dared to pray. Outside, the Arizona wind sang through the desert, carrying the promise of storms to come. But inside their home, Elena and Jake began the beautiful, complicated, passionate work of building a life together. One kiss, one touch, one whispered endearment at a time.